If every conversation about help turns into an argument, you might be using the wrong language. Even good intentions can trigger a resistance. So let me show you what to avoid. Hi, my name is Vitaly and welcome to inHom Senior Care. For over 20 years, I've been in home care and have been helping families not only get services to get the help, but a lot of times aid in these conversations that sometimes are not as simple and not as productive as people would like them to be. I've seen this pattern kind of over and over. Daughters are frustrated, parents feel attacked, and it's not the topic, it's the language and the tone. This is what this video, what we want to do is just help you to better understand how to have these conversations productively so that you can both get what you want. You as a caregiver get the peace of mind that your parent is getting the help that they need, and for them to actually accept that help and to feel good about having that need and that assistance being met for them. So this video is essentially about what not to say to your aging parents or parent or your loved one as you are talking or having these conversations about getting help. So we're going to talk about specific phrases that you want to avoid and then what to do instead. So number one phrase that you want to avoid is "you can't live here anymore." There's a bit of a frustrating tone that usually accompanies that type of a phrase. And the reason it backfires is it sounds final, sounds like an eviction notice, like you're kicking them out, and it triggers fear, right? It triggers fear because our home is very sacred to us. You know, all of us, I think, have that sense that our home is just a place where we feel the most comfort and the most safety. And when somebody makes a statement like that, it can be very jarring. So what they're hearing from you is that they're incapable, their independence is over and they can't do things on their own anymore. And so people feel cornered. When they feel pushed against the wall, they get defensive and they want to argue. They don't really want to accept what someone's saying to them. So you kind of lose the logic of whatever argument you're having, and you get down to just more of the pure emotional level of, I feel insulted. I feel like you're taking over my life. I feel like you're telling me what to do. So number two phrase to avoid is "you're not safe." It sounds overly dramatic because in many ways, in senses of that word, safety is relative. We're all even when we talk about falls risk, for example, as a safety issue, right? We all have some risk of falling, right? When it gets icy outside, our risk of falling goes way up. The challenge is for someone who is aging, who's in their 80s or in their 90s, a fall means a whole lot more things or different things than to somebody that's in their 20s or in their 30s. So "you're not safe" can sound very dramatic and it feels exaggerated to them, right? Because when you're functioning in a certain environment, you get kind of accustomed to whatever that environment is giving you. And so you might feel like, and I mean they might feel like they're actually just fine. The fact that they're holding on to the furniture when they're walking around, well, that's just a way to do it. And that's just the way to keep myself from tipping over. And so it feels exaggerated and it challenges their judgment. So they feel like, somehow they don't know enough about their own personal safety, and here you come and you're going to arbitrate this and you're going to tell them, nope, you're not doing this anymore because you're not safe anymore. So the better framing for this is that a safety conversation should be more collaborative. You should be able to have a conversation back and forth that you're not pronouncing a judgment or you're not pronouncing something like it sounds like a decision that you've made on their behalf. So if they don't agree there's a danger, they're going to resist the solution. And we all have a different view of danger and of safety. A lot of that older generation is going to have a higher acceptance of the risk associated with life in general, right? We have taken safety to a new level in many ways. In many ways, that's a positive thing, but in some ways, it's also made us a little bit more maybe too afraid to do things. And so someone in that generation may say, well, yeah, but I want to live my life. Yeah, so what if there's a risk? So what if I'm not as safe as I could possibly be? And so see what I'm saying? The conversation can be productive, but when we use certain language, it really definitely pushes it into that confrontational space versus being able to say, well, yeah, we all have to accept a degree of risk and a degree of safety concerns that will say, okay, yeah, I mean, I can reduce or lower or minimize my risk factors in whatever situation, but there's still always going to be some safety concerns no matter what. Number three, a phrase to avoid is, I can't keep doing this, right? So it's a very frustrated, burnout type phrase for the caregiver saying, I can't keep running over here at 10 o'clock at night. I can't keep running to the ER with you. I can't keep doing this. And so the reason it backfires, it's an instant guilt, kind of a blanket over everything, right? And then makes them feel like they're a burden, makes them feel like, well, they probably already felt like there may be a burden a bit, but now you've kind of brought it out into the light, and you've brought it out in a highly emotional way, right? So very emotionally charged, you're frustrated, and it comes out that way. And then it shifts the conversation to your exhaustion. So it comes on to you as a caregiver, and now the focus is on you because you've had to rearrange your life and help them, instead of focusing on what we're trying to accomplish with this conversation, which is their need. Now, acknowledge this for yourself. Burnout is very real for caregivers, right? In fact, one of the things that we really want to help educate caregivers about is setting up healthy boundaries for themselves so they don't reach a point of burnout. But I get it in this conversation issue, and as you're trying to have these back and forths to create maybe some boundaries and create some stability for yourself as the caregiver, and then safety and care for your loved one, I need you to acknowledge that burnout for caregivers is significant and it's a real issue. But leading with this frustration will rarely get you to where you want to get to, right? It's rarely going to get you to a cooperative solution to where you both feel good about, because now you've shifted the conversation towards your own frustration, towards your own needs. And in that process, you've broken trust and you've alienated them from what you're trying to actually communicate to them. So phrase number 4 to avoid is, you need help. Okay, so sounds logical, but it feels threatening, right? So when you say you need help, like, it's not wrong. You're not wrong for saying that. They do need help. And the reason you're probably in the mix and even having this conversation is because they do need help, and you're actually the one doing some of that helping. But that phrase sounds threatening, right? If your tone is just a little bit off, it can sound like, man, you need help. Right? What does that sound like? It sounds like you're not all the way right up here. It's just not a great phrase to use. So it implies that they're incapacitated in some way or incapable of doing their own things. And again, this is a fluid scenario here. They are losing their ability to do some things, and that's why you're in the mix and why you're having these conversations. But it doesn't help you to bring that up and then do it in a tone that causes them to shut down, right? So it feels like you're issuing a verdict to them rather than having a empathetic conversation about the fact that you want them to do well. So nobody wants to be told that they need help. None of us. We don't want to hear that, whether it's somebody telling us that we need physical help or some sort of other type of help, right? So instead of the control language, ultimatums, and fear-based statements like we talked about here, your conversation, think about this, and this is why it's important before you even really go and have this conversation, is to try to kind of frame your mind, and maybe even if it takes that, maybe write yourself a little cue card and just a little bit of a reminder, because in the midst of those conversations, the emotions may get the best of you, and you may be tempted to escalate and to say, maybe it is that burnout factor that kind of comes through, and you say, I am really tired. I'm doing more than I can, right? Some of that can come out. And so you want to shift that conversation towards support, partnership, and preserving independence. You want to play a supportive role to them so that they don't have to be a burden to you, but you're still in the picture and you're helping them. And you're partnering with them to help them make a wise, a logical, a good decision. And then the whole goal of that partnership and of that decision-making process is to preserve their independence, right? Hopefully, we want to allow them to age in place, right? It's a concept It's a fantastic concept. We've been able to help people do that for over 20 years, where people want to stay in their own home and age in place. It is something that people do all the time. But it does take some conversations, and it obviously does require care for that to happen, and for care to be in place for the needs that are now becoming needs where they need addressing and attention. Those can be addressed by a caregiver who can come over and provide some of those services. So if your conversation keeps going sideways, it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you need to adjust your approach a little bit, right? And be very careful about the emotional statements, emotional leading, because it tends to lead to another emotional response by them, right? So if you're leading with an emotional kind of a statement, highly charged words, so be careful with that. It just means that your approach needs to be adjusted a bit. So anyway, if you're here in the Twin Cities, we are in Burnsville. We would love to have a conversation with you. Reach out to us. Our information, our website, our phone numbers all over in this video. We offer free, no obligation care consultation in the home. We'll visit with you and just have a conversation. Whether you ever end up using our services or not, there's nothing to that. We want to build relationships, and that's what we do. We have amazing relationships with our caregivers, with the clients that we serve. And we want to build relationships between our amazing caregivers and your potential loved one who may need that care. But in the meantime, if our services do not fit what the need is, or you are looking for a different option, we could certainly still help you, connect you to resources. Healthcare and care services, they're kind of scattered, right? There's lots of different services available, but there's almost no company that provides kind of everything. And that's actually a good thing, because those of us that specialize in what we do are actually really good at doing it. And if you have a company that does all sorts of things, you have to start to wonder, is there the quality component in every one of their silos of services, versus for us, for example, the care is all that we do, and we very specifically focus on seniors, so we don't work with all age groups, and our caregivers are hired and trained for those purposes, and they're very, very good. So anyway, please leave a comment. We want to hear from you. We want to hear if this is helpful. We want to hear from you in terms of other topics that you'd like to hear us educate on. Share this with someone that you think may benefit from it, and then we would love it if you would subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.